Welcome.
That must have been the Tucker Carlson show.
That was a terrible watch. And I really wondered, how do you do this? You've been in spotlight in all kinds of terrible ways that I don't think none of us know, and you go through that, and there's this mission that you have, I think, somewhere burning in your heart. I guess that's the fire, but you've seen.
He has this kind of tactic where he'll throw out questions that demand volumes of explanation, expect you to summarize it in 2 sentences. So he was really frustrated when I refused to take the bait and bother trying to justify Satanism to him. But I wanted to try to get him to reconcile his views on free speech with this notion that we shouldn't be allowed a piece of the public square. And he wasn't able to do that. He had me on twice. Both times he got pissed off. The second time he yelled that I needed to go crawl back into my hole, and they cut my mic, and that was it. These are both on YouTube. They're really good.
Yeah, I do actually recommend to Google and look up. It's fun and hard watch at the same time, I'd say. But going a bit more serious, I think this era we live in now is described as with something of a severe truth decay that American society has seen before during the times of Vietnam War or the Watergate scandal, but it's peaking currently because Americans continuously or ever more disagree about basic facts. And I think I definitely feel hopeless being part of this change and seeing this change happen and not knowing what to do. What do you think the individual can do right now?
I think we are in a really tough time right now, and I unfortunately think things could possibly get a lot worse before they get better. But I think something that's really worth doing is exploiting the cognitive dissonance of the right, because they do believe themselves to be constitutional purists, the fighters for religious liberty, and they can't reconcile that with the idea of, say, the Satanic Temple. And I think we cause a real rift within the right wing, and similarly, to me being on Fox News, have been written about on Breitbart and other outlets like that, where they're usually of a very uniform opinion, but you see some of the types whose loyalty is more to the Constitution than to the Bible, and that causes a real kind of rift and collapse, and we can only hope that the right in the U.S. implodes upon itself.
I felt that maybe next year at What the Fest we're going to do a class or talk or maybe a whole new foundation to something that's called the School of Doubt, where we all need to give our personal little input into making sure that we see the two sides of whatever we're arguing or learning about. And I think that's one of the things that we all really need to do. But I know it changed a lot for the Satanic Temple when Trump came to power. I think one of the things that you saw was like numbers increasing. How much did that change everything more serious?
Yeah, everybody was kind of...
Everybody was just kind of laughing when we first came into the news during the Obama administration. But for all the humor you see in the tactics we were doing, we took this all very seriously in what we were doing. We saw the encroachment of theocracy, and when you have Ten Commandments monuments popping up in places like Arkansas and Oklahoma, these aren't just regional issues. These are really things that resonate for the entire nation. And in any one of these places where they set precedent that allows for this, they've taken another step towards gaining exclusive privilege for one viewpoint. And that's a really dangerous place to be in. And we see there's a lot of people with this kind of compromising accommodationist perspective saying, well, what's the big deal on something like that? They really think the Monument Campaign is something of a joke, that it's not that serious. Let the Christians have their little advertisement on the public grounds. But the fact of the matter is they don't stop there. These are just steps. So you see the guy holding up the piece of money saying, it says, "In God we trust" on it. They then use any bit of any step forward to them is just one step. It's just another stepping stone to take it to the next step, and they won't be happy until they are really the one legislating morality in the United States. And they're getting closer and closer all the time, and the disposition of the Supreme Court now is highly concerning.
One of the things that I found maybe something that you might think of, but you use the American laws as really the base where you drive from. And what happens if any of the laws is changed because of your actions? Because then you turn counterproductive. Is that something that you feared?
Yeah, this is something we consider all the time. And now, of course, given that the Supreme Court is the way it is, this might prevent us from appealing certain cases to the Supreme Court now. But the reason we're really bent upon working within legal means right now, of course, is because the law really is on our side. The law, as it was established, really does put us on paper as a secular nation, and the government needs to remain viewpoint neutral. I can see that changing in the future, and that could also be an unintended consequence of the things that we do. But that's something we're trying hard not to do, and we're really trying hard to get people to understand the value in religious pluralism. And something that's not shown in the film, but I think is really important, is that final climactic rally was actually an interfaith rally. We had Christian pastors, 2 of them, speaking before I came up to the stage. And they knew that the Baphomet was going to be there, and they knew that I was the keynote speaker, but they too were very dedicated to the idea of government viewpoint neutrality, and they could see the value in that. And these were pastors operating in Arkansas, in Little Rock. A lot of the people who were just standing with me, locals, were afraid of how this would reflect upon them and the rest of the community. They were definitely afraid of the ramifications of this, but they did it anyway, and that shows you how important this is to them.
I know that the Satanic Temple is up for pretty big things that you're working off. Not only law-driven help, the so-called, I think you named it like, what was it, Satanic Lobby, and that would be something that everybody can be a part of or ask for, and also reproductive rights clinic. How is your mission going on with these new things up on your horizon?
Those things are all moving forward, and we're building a more robust community all the time. But I think one thing that we can see happening that is really causing a lot of people to scratch their heads is in these local jurisdictions now where they come up with some idea to put up a Christian monument or whatever. They'll see pushback in our defense before we even rise to the challenge. People already know about us. People will say during these meetings, what happens when the Satanists come? Have you accounted for that? And this is something now that's in the public consciousness and people have to consider. And that alone is a certain type of progress.
Now I just have to ask for the audience members who might not be as well acquainted with the Satanic Temple or maybe even as with Satan as a symbol, it feels to me that if you would call yourself the free thinking movement or everybody's welcome, you might have a whole lot more people who immediately resonate, but you stick to the Satanic Temple and to the symbol, and it is a very conscious choice.
Yeah, but we still want to have naked rituals and free things.
And explain that, yeah, and explain the goat sacrifice every time, right? Talking about rituals, there's a little something in your hand. You know, I really realized one of the truths about Satan, which is that Satan is sweet. So what you have in there is something sweet. We're going to pay our tribute to Satan, who is sweet to us, and we're going to have a little something sweet in our mouth. So please be welcome and have one of these coins.
I've eaten mine already.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, you can get more, I think.
It does.
That's okay.
It says in God we trust.
I jumped the gun.
They should have changed it up.
That's too bad. Well, it'll melt when you eat it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you have questions. And I'm happy to open the mic, so I'm just going to do my 10,000 steps and go back and forth as we munch a bit of sweet Satan and have some questions to Lucien. But I need your help. You need to pass on the mic.
Really small theater. Tiny.
Hi, I just wanted to know, like, what were your initial conversations with the filmmaker? And, like, I know it was, like, very jarring at the very beginning. It's, like, all blurred out faces. So in addition to your conversations with the filmmaker, what were your conversations with, like, other co-founders and members of the temple to participate in this?
As far as media and public appearances are concerned, I pretty much have had unilateral control over that. The people I worked with had absolute trust in me over that, and I turned down a lot of requests to do documentaries and shows. You'll see there's this common criticism of us, this idea that we're these kind of media whores, but we actually haven't gone on a lot of the kind of daytime talk show venues. The worst kind of thing I'll do is Tucker Carlson. I mean, in that, I think I'm vindicated on, because I get messages after those appearances from people who are actually regular watchers of Fox News who say that I made them think about something they hadn't thought about before, which probably isn't very difficult for many of them, but but nonetheless, it's something. But I was in another documentary called Sympathy for the Devil, and it was about this cult from the 60s and 70s called the Process Church of the Final Judgment that I did a lot of research about, and I spoke in this documentary. And it was showing at the Harvard Film Archive, and I did a opening discussion about it. I introduced the film, and Penny was there, and I talked about some of the influences that went into the Satanic Temple, and that was the first she realized that there was more philosophical depth to the Satanic Temple than just this kind of trolling that was apparent in the media. And that's when she reached out and wanted to float the idea of a documentary. My knee-jerk reaction is no, but she invited me to a premiere of her then recent film Nuts, and I came to see that. And then when she was doing Q&A, she was talking about her battle against the anti-vaccination crew. And I thought then, I thought Nuts was so well put together, the narrative arc was so brilliantly constructed, and just her general viewpoint on things made me think that we were probably a good fit, and it went from there.
Do we have more questions for Lucien? Keep eating sweet Satan.
Hi. I wondered what's become of the Baphomet statue, and are there plans to keep kind of moving it around the country every time this happens?
Yeah. Each time we'll use it that way. But right now, we have it in our headquarters in Salem. You see the house. We had to get the floor reinforced, and we hired guys. It unscrews from the base, so it comes unseated from it, and the children come off separately as well. They bolt in, and when we transport them, they're like in their own individual coffins, which looks neat because they're both kind of looking up, and the boy has his arms folded like this. But we hired these guys who I guess usually move pianos or whatever, and they were bringing it into the house, and about halfway into getting it through the door, they said, "Yeah, we don't know if this is going to fit." And I just thought that was remarkable, because I thought that would have been really easy for them to measure out beforehand. But it did work. We've got it in there now. So it'll be difficult to take out, but it's something we'll have to do. I can see a situation where it goes up very temporarily somewhere until they take down the Ten Commandments, which would kind of be a pain in the ass, but totally worth it too.
So if I now want to be an active Satanist, so after seeing, I'm still a newbie, a freshman Satanist, but for example, I would like to be more active, then what do I do? Where do I come?
Well, go to thesatanictemple.com. We have a list of all the active chapters we have, and then you can reach out to your individual local chapter. A lot of people write to us asking how they start a chapter. You can write to the National Council about that. That's National Council at thesatanictemple.com, and they can walk you through all of that.
And I'm sure I can have my tree-hugging version in Estonia.
Yeah.
So we have one more question. Yes. This gentleman has been in this cinema since the cinema was founded 60 years ago. My favorite.
I'm just a regular, die-hard Christian American citizen. I've made small but regular donations to groups from the Southern Poverty Law Center to the National Space Society. How would I begin to make donations, regular donations, to Satan's Temple?
I just have to offer to everybody that this is not staged. Genuinely ask that question.
It's not. He's here. Those of you who've been to the festival would know. He's like, you're the face of what the festival.
There is a donation link on our website, and there is the opportunity for recurring donations as well. But also, if you just buy swag from us, that helps fund our campaigns also. We sell our T-shirts and our Baphomet miniatures and stuff like that, and that helps us pay off our legal bills.
Baphomet miniatures, you heard it. Okay, we have one more question. Hands up. I'm coming.
Oh,
I thought so too.
cool.
Oh, wow.
Hi. So you mentioned before about how when you were working with somebody else on a different documentary, how you kind of talked to them and communicated and like kind of screened them through. But did you have, before you made like any appearances or interviews or things like that, did you have any doubts, like being the co-founder of the Satanic Temple and talking to people about it and trying to get your image out there and like get their voice out there?
Yeah, there's a lady sitting right near you who could answer that. She tried interviewing me more in the early days and did a whole profile on the Satanic Temple. And I think people are kind of intrigued to find that I'm not really comfortable with the kind of attention, or personal attention at least. And I try to keep people on the issues and try to keep this from becoming a kind of cult of personality. So I put a lot of rules into place with the making of this documentary. No reenactments, no personal profiles. And I had a really difficult time with this premiering at Sundance, because the way the media approaches me now seems to be different than before. I used to get into these interviews and people would ask me a personal question, and I would lay down some ground rules and say, I won't have a personal profile written about me, I'm not getting into personal life details, this is about the organization, this is about the causes, and I feel that it denigrates the rest of the organization, all the work all the chapters do, all the work all the individual members do, for me to start talking about it as though I'm the author of this movement and anything I say goes, because that's just not how it is. And usually that would work. People would then, stick to the issues or whatever else. What happened in Sundance is I guess because I'm a primary character focus in this film, they would then just write these kind of pieces about how private and recluse I am. They were still personal profiles that were kind of profiling these idiosyncrasies they noted about me in person. So for that reason, I've kind of floated the idea of stepping away from media a bit and giving different interviews to the people for whom the topic is relevant. Like, we have a director for the After School Satan Club. If the media wants to talk about the After School Satan Club, they can talk to her. We have a Gray Faction campaign where we fight against pseudoscience in the mental health care field, the type that led to the Satanic Panic, recovered memory therapies and things like that. We have a director of that in Boston. They can talk to him about that. And maybe I'll just do things like bullshit interviews like Tucker Carlson, because who wants to do that? But once you've done it, and once you feel comfortable doing that, you might as well be the one to do it, because that's a rough thing to get used to.
Watch it, that's for sure. We had one more question somewhere.
Oh, here.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, remarkably, you actually addressed most of the question that I had, and that was the sort of cult of personality issue. And I wondered, sort of structurally, if you have anything in place that would assure transition to someone to take the helm after you.
That's something I won't feel comfortable till something is comfortably in place for that. But after the Sundance thing, I felt really kind of disoriented and really wondering if myself as a media presence was actually, first I thought my media presence was counterproductive to the promotion of the film, because articles were being written based upon my Sundance interviews that didn't even mention the film. They were talking about some bullshit thing I had said about Mike Pence. There was like 3 days of articles about one line I had given some journalist about how I thought Mike Pence was an asshole. And it showed up as like a headline in the Daily Beast, and it was like, head of Satanic Temple thinks Mike Pence is an asshole or whatever. And I thought, do the Daily Beast readers know who I am? And if they don't, why would they care? But if they do know who I am, how would they be surprised that Tenants is an asshole? So I thought it was a misstep on the part of the journalist. I thought, he didn't know what he was there for, obviously. But then all these stations were picking it up, and they even ran an article in The Hill as though this were important, relevant political news. So I lost all my bearings, and then I thought, is it to the point maybe where me speaking about campaigns for the Satanic Temple is going to overshadow the issues that we're trying to draw attention to that the campaign is based off of, and therefore maybe I should draw back a bit. I wrote a thing about it, put it on my Patreon, and a lot of people kind of freaked out, and some people felt that if I were to step away that it would be damaging to the organization right now. And one person who I really consult on these issues because he's my famous friend is John Waters, and he really feels that we should have a celebrity face, and he's kind of brought me more towards a center, but I'm still a little I'm still not convinced that it needs to be the way he thinks it should be, because I think with him, I should be wearing like flowing capes. So in pink. All the time. Yeah, that kind of thing. But I think maybe I can do like the appearances I was talking about while trying to keep the general media on task when it comes to the issues themselves. So that's about where I am right now. We'll see how it progresses as it plays out. But I do want this to persist well after me, and I have to always consider getting shot or whatever else. I was disappointed with Arkansas. At first, when I was putting on the bulletproof vest, I thought, now if I don't get shot at, everybody's going to say I was over-dramatizing. But when we got there, Penny and the camera crew were really close on the truck and where we were going to be. But outside on the perimeter, there were all these fucking guys with guns. Like there were guys in khakis and guys like in the distance, like making signals at us. I mean, nobody took a shot, but it really seemed like there were strong odds of getting shot. But I have to keep in mind, if I do something like this again, somebody might actually pull off a shot, and we need to make sure that there's a easy transition in the organization going forward from there.
That's a hard one to kind of laugh to. You're speaking with that kind of motivation of, when it happens, and I'm inside thinking, that's actually pretty dark. You're, I think doing much more than we can even grasp.
It would have been very cinematic, though.
Very cinematic, considering we kind of genre film festival, and that's a documentary, they're not shot. Okay. Anyway, one of the things I truly, truly love talking about rules is the 7 fundamental tenets of the Satanic Temple. I think you all have them in your hand. Let's do a rite in the end of this, a mini rite in the end of this screening. Lucien will be here and we'll talk to you a little bit after, but will you stand up with me? And then take a little pass. And you will forgive me my bad pronunciation, but you can make it better by speaking with me. We're going to read them out loud, and each one you can say Hail Satan, of course. So should we start? One should strive to act with compassion and empathy towards all creatures in accordance with reason. Hail Satan. The struggle for justice is an ongoing and necessary pursuit and should prevail over laws and institutions. Hail Satan! One's body is inviolable, subject to one's own will alone. Hail Satan! The freedoms of others should be respected, including the freedom to offend. To willfully and unjustly encroach upon the freedoms of another is to forego one's own. Hail Satan! Belief should conform to our best scientific understanding of the world. We should take care never to distort scientific facts to fit our beliefs. Hail Satan! People are fallible. If we make a mistake, we should do our best to rectify and remedy any harm that may have been caused. Hail Satan! Every tenet is a guiding principle designed to inspire nobility in action and thought. The spirit of compassion, wisdom, and justice should always prevail over the written or spoken word. Hail Satan! Thank you, Lucien. This has been wonderful. Thank you, everybody.
Shout out to the New York chapter, too.
like 4 of us here.